Picture this, a bra strap snapping mid-interview, live, in front of a camera crew and a room full of people. Most actresses would freeze, panic, call for a break. Meryl Streep just laughed, held it together with one hand, and kept talking like nothing happened. That single moment tells you almost everything you need to know about the most decorated actress in Hollywood history. She has 8 Golden Globes, 3 Academy Awards, and a record number of nominations that nobody has come close to touching. And yet, somehow, she has never once bothered to act like it. No polished PR answers, no carefully rehearsed soundbites, no pretending everything is fine when it isn't. If you want to know what happens when one of the greatest performers alive simply refuses to filter herself, buckle up, because this is going to be a fun ride. Let's start at the very beginning, because Streep's origin story alone sounds like something out of a movie script. Long before she became the greatest actress of her generation, she was just a young actress walking into an audition for the 1976 King Kong remake, hoping to impress the legendary producer Dino De Laurentiis. She climbed up to his office on one of the top floors of a Manhattan skyscraper, walked in, and stood there while De Laurentiis turned to his son and, thinking she couldn't understand Italian, asked why he'd brought him this ugly thing. Most people would have crumbled. Streep, fluent in Italian from her studies, understood every word. Instead of storming out, she looked him dead in the eye and told him she was sorry she wasn't beautiful enough for his movie. She didn't get the part. She got something better, a story she'd go on to tell for decades, and a reputation for handling humiliation with more grace and wit than the people dishing it out. That refusal to pretend has followed her through nearly 50 years in the industry, especially when it comes to award shows. Take her very first Golden Globes appearance in 1980. She'd just given birth to her first child and was up for Kramer vs. Kramer. Back then, according to what she later told Graham Norton on his BBC talk show, stylists didn't lend out dresses to actresses the way they do now, so she didn't have the money for something new. Her solution? She wore her own wedding dress to the ceremony. It was a lovely white silk gown, perfectly appropriate, until the luncheon dragged on for hours and her body reminded her she was still nursing. By mid-afternoon, things went south in the most literal way possible, and she found herself sitting through the rest of the show with her arms crossed over her chest, silently hoping nobody noticed. Then they called her name for the win. She had to walk up to that stage, accept her first major award, and pose for photos, all while trying to keep her arms locked in place. She said herself that the room must have thought she was the strangest woman they'd ever given a trophy to. It's the kind of story most celebrities would bury forever. Streep tells it with a grin, because to her, it's just funny. Award shows, in general, seem to bring out her most unfiltered side. At the 2017 Golden Globes, she took the stage to accept the Cecil B. DeMille Award, a lifetime achievement honor reserved for legends. Most people would use that moment to bask in the glory of being called an icon. Streep opened by admitting that most days, she doesn't feel like one at all. It's a small thing, but it says a lot about how she actually sees herself compared to how the world sees her. She's also been candid about simply not enjoying the dressed-up side of Hollywood. She's mentioned clashing with stylists over outfits she didn't want to wear, including one memorable disagreement over a request that she put on ostrich feathers for an event. She said no. She's also admitted, without a hint of embarrassment, that getting showered with compliments and praise makes her deeply uncomfortable, which is a strange but oddly relatable trait for someone whose entire career revolves around being celebrated. Then there's the story that might be the funniest accidental compliment mix-up in recent Hollywood history. While filming Don't Look Up in 2021, her younger co-stars Jonah Hill and Jennifer Lawrence started affectionately calling her the GOAT, meaning greatest of all time. Streep, according to what Lawrence later explained on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, had absolutely no idea what the acronym meant. During a photo shoot, Lawrence tossed out the nickname, and Streep, thinking they were making a joke about her age, replied along the lines of, "That's right, just tell the old goat where to go." Lawrence had to stop and explain that goat wasn't an insult about being old, it was the highest compliment in modern slang. Streep's reaction was pure disbelief. It wasn't until Jonah Hill mentioned the nickname again at a press conference, and Streep repeated it back to reporters completely unaware of its meaning, that the whole misunderstanding became public and hilarious. It's one thing to be called the greatest of all time by 2 Oscar winners. It's another to have absolutely no clue that's what's happening while it's happening to you. Streep's honesty doesn't stop at self-deprecation. She's just as blunt when it comes to talking about the industry itself, especially how Hollywood treats women as they age. She's spoken openly about turning 40 and suddenly being offered 3 different witch roles within the same year, joking that it felt like a not-so-subtle message about how the industry viewed actresses once they hit that milestone. It's a joke, but it's also a sharp piece of commentary delivered with a laugh instead of a lecture, which might be exactly why it lands so well. She's used that same dry, matter-of-fact humor when discussing fame itself. She's admitted that she misses the days when fans wanted autographs instead of selfies, joking about how selfies take longer, require people to angle their faces just right, and often still end in disappointment when they don't like how the photo turned out. It's such a small, mundane complaint, but it's exactly the kind of thing you don't expect a legend of her stature to bring up unprompted. Her willingness to just say whatever's actually on her mind has made her a favorite guest for late-night and daytime talk shows willing to put her through ridiculous, unscripted bits. On the Ellen DeGeneres show back in 2014, Ellen handed her an oatmeal recipe and asked her to read it in the sexiest voice she could manage. Without missing a beat, Streep launched into a smoldering, over-the-top reading of instructions about boiling water and stirring oats, turning a boring recipe card into something that had the entire studio audience in tears from laughing. Ellen didn't stop there. She handed Streep a traffic report next and asked her to read it as though she were a woman in the middle of labor, and once again, Streep fully committed, turning a report about highway backups into a dramatic, screaming performance worthy of an Oscar reel. It's become one of the most replayed celebrity clips of the decade, not because it was scripted comedy, but because Streep treated a silly party game with the same total commitment she brings to a real film role. Her chemistry with longtime collaborators has produced some of her funniest unscripted moments too. She and Tom Hanks have worked together multiple times, most notably in The Post, and their off-screen friendship is full of teasing. Hanks has told the story of how their entire cast used to react whenever Streep walked onto set during filming, comparing it to dogs perking up at the sound of a mail carrier approaching, everyone snapping to attention the moment they heard her coming down the hallway. It's a funny visual, sure, but it also says something about the kind of respect she commands just by showing up. Streep, for her part, has been just as playful about their history together, at one point recalling an early meeting with Hanks that he remembered as far more significant than she did, leading to some good-natured bickering on stage about whose memory of the encounter was actually correct. Her honesty extends to her own career milestones, too, even when it makes her look less than perfect. During one televised game where she was challenged to name as many of her own Oscar-nominated films as possible in under a minute, in exchange for a bonus trophy, she started strong but quickly began blanking on titles, at one point accidentally naming a film that belonged to someone else entirely. She laughed at herself the whole way through, joking that she can remember decades-old memories in vivid detail but can barely remember what she did last week. It's a small, human moment from someone whose entire public image is built around being note-perfect, and it's exactly the kind of thing that makes her more likable rather than less impressive. Even her professional relationships get the same honest treatment. When Anne Hathaway joined her on The Devil Wears Prada, Hathaway has recalled how warmly Streep welcomed her before filming began, pulling her aside to say how excited she was to work together and how well she thought Hathaway was going to do. Hathaway has joked since then that it turned out to be the last outright compliment Streep gave her for the rest of the shoot, since in character as the icy Miranda Priestley, Streep spent the remainder of filming being deliberately cold and intimidating to help Hathaway's performance land. It's a small anecdote, but it captures something real about how Streep approaches her craft. Total commitment, even if it means putting the niceties aside once the cameras roll. What ties all of these moments together isn't scandal or controversy. It's the fact that Meryl Streep, despite decades of fame, awards, and universal acclaim, has never bothered to construct the kind of untouchable, mysterious celebrity persona so many stars protect. She'll tell you about the time she was called ugly to her face. She'll tell you about accidentally lactating through her own wedding dress on national television. She'll admit she didn't understand a modern slang compliment thrown her way by 2 actors decades younger than her. She'll joke about being bad at recalling her own filmography, and about genuinely disliking the parts of fame that most people assume actors secretly love. In an industry built on carefully managed images, that kind of openness is rare, and it's exactly why so many of her most viral moments aren't clips from her films at all, but interviews, talk show bits, and award show slip-ups where she simply let herself be human. So the next time you watch one of her performances and marvel at how effortlessly she disappears into a character, remember that off-screen, she's just as compelling for the opposite reason. She refuses to disappear into a persona at all. She's messy, she's funny, she forgets things, she gets embarrassed, and she talks about all of it without flinching. That's a rare kind of fearlessness, and it might be just as impressive as any award on her shelf. If you enjoyed hearing these stories, Let us know in the comments which Meryl Streep moment is your favorite, and stick around for more honest, unfiltered looks at the celebrities you think you already know.